Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, and I apologize very much. We were in the coolest science experiment that we've had. So,
Oh, yeah?
yeah, the dual language program has Cena y Ciencias, dinner in science. And it's all the kids that are learning Spanish, and so they have scientists from the university, students, scientists, and they come and do a lesson, and then the kids do the experiment, and then at the end was well, pedagogically it was an evaluation,
Yeah.
but for the kids it was dancing and identifying what was going on with the molecules. So it was just tremendous.
Huh.
Very, very good. So anyway, but I was thinking about immigration.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, that's what we've been talking about here for the last however long. And
So as a Hispanic, and I respond a little bit, I don't know
Oh,
the
yeah,
source of the article, but I just kept thinking, you know, when I talk to Hispanics, and I'm a Hispanic,
yeah.
right? So I'm in the middle of it. They don't necessarily get this part, but once we talk it through, it's like, yeah. And that is this. One, it's the Republicans are voting together, but they're being driven by that element that you said, you
Yeah.
know, the rightmost things. Because there's plenty of Republicans, many of them owners, many of them hirers, that they can't wait for something to happen so they can hire people and stop this fear.
Yeah.
A good portion of my clients back when I was, there were about 150 construction companies that I used to work with. And most of them, their first question is, how can I do this legally?
Yeah.
I've got them, they're good workers, I want them to grow up in the company. I don't want them, one, I don't want to fear getting raided. Two, I don't want them to be leaving, because I need them. They know, they love my company, I love them. You know, can I do something? Can I sponsor them?
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to do it the right way, but you cannot sponsor a construction worker and, you know, to have them get a visa.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not practically. So there are, and they were certainly, and let me tell you, very much Republican in all their other new views.
Yeah, yeah.
But they wanted to do something. So there's that side, and which is, then to me, there's a good portion of maybe cowards, maybe, you know, they are cowards because they don't want to expose themselves, but on the other hand, they're also not, they don't want to risk take their business over this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and then there's the Democrats. When I talk to Hispanics, to Latinos, and they see that this has been dragged on, and what Obama announced on November 20th that the Republicans were revolting about, it ain't much.
I know.
There's a lot of families that don't get affected.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people excluded, and what he announced may be good for, you know, in any one family, like one of the people qualifies now,
Yeah.
and the rest are now more afraid, because if that person qualifies and sends in all their information to the government, now the house is tagged.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who's gonna come to the house, so it's like, thank you, but, you know, no
Yeah.
thank you?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, is this good? Especially because
Yeah.
the Republicans are making such a mess, and they're gonna revolt, and they're gonna overturn it, and then now the government has all the information. Man, it's kinda scary to think that now we're in a situation that may be worse than it was before he announced something.
Yeah, I know, and I should probably clarify, and one thing that I don't do very often when I do these things, is, you know, I'm very hard on the Republicans on the show. If you've listened to me at all, you know that I am.
Yeah.
And it's not because of any, well, it's some individual people. It's not because a person is a Republican, but because the party is allowing this to go on.
Yeah.
Whatever you can say about them and whatever you claim to profess your views are, claim to profess, anyway, whatever you profess your views are, if you let somebody speak for you and say something that you don't agree with, I'm sorry, you are going along with it. You are saying, well, he's speaking for me.
Yeah, it's the classic statement, you know, the ones that didn't speak when the unspeakable was happening are to blame.
Yeah.
You know?
So I'm hard on them because they're so overtly negative. I don't say much about the Democrats because they're at least officially they sort of speak the right things in a general way.
Well,
They say,
see,
"Well,
and that's where I am like fed up with enough Democrats that are only doing it because of that.
Uh-huh.
That is, oh, this gets us votes, so let's do it. They don't speak their mind. They don't speak their mind to rebut their own leadership, to say, all that for this?
Yeah.
Because, there was a point at which, what's his name, Gutierrez, Congressman Gutierrez
Yeah.
from the Chicago area, was finally saying to Obama's people, you're off,
Yeah.
deporter in chief and whatever else, in whichever way. Now, I've seen Gutierrez, we've talked to him a couple of times and all that, but I used to be anti-Gutierrez 10 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
because sometimes when he would come up, back in 05, 06, he sounded patronizing, he sounded like he was taking up a cause for the votes.
Ah.
I've since watched him stick his neck out in situations, including, let's say, a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
where, you know what? He really is risking something, and he could lose big time on this, but he's still doing it.
Yeah.
There's that. To me, that's the, if you will, an Archie Bunker type. He's putting himself on the table for what he is, and at the
Yeah.
risk of. But we have a lot of Democrats who really are not speaking their mind. They're letting the leadership do whatever, including putting on the brakes, including giving little pieces rather than a full reform. And while I might understand that sometimes issues are bigger than immigration, I do not believe that if they were really, really serious as a party, that they could not do more.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and so that's the part of the Democrats that I'm like, I'm mad at you too. And if there's a Hispanic revolt, I wish it would be very much against them all
Yeah.
for not doing anything, nothing of substance.
And that's the thing where here's a point where this topic, I think, gets off track for a lot of people, because they've bought into, or they've just absorbed this illegal thing to the point where it seems like what you and I are saying is, oh, you're apologizing for all these criminals that are doing these illegal acts, and that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that.
Mhm.
What about the law and all this stuff? And I always feel compelled to point out at this point that we're not talking about necessarily about people who are like, bringing bolt cutters and cutting through barbed wire fences and
Yeah.
sneaking in and smuggling drugs and doing it. We're talking about just regular people, that people just come here for whatever reason. They're working, they're going
Yeah.
to school, they're whatever, and it's like, oh, I should go home, but
And they have to make real choices,
Yeah.
do I put my family at this danger?
Mhm.
When we did the forum on Central American children, and we had a full presentation of people, of the lawyers, and describe the problem and describe the demographic, whatever else,
Mhm.
all very nice. But it wasn't until, one of the kids spoke through somebody else that we got a voice of what he was going through,
Yeah.
He was going to high school here, but he was working at night.
Mhm.
Or immigration gave him an appointment, and we say, wow, that's really nice. And he's got to figure his own ways, 16 years old, from here to Chicago and back at his own expense. And he's got to do it on a school day where he knows if he gets caught, he'll be in trouble for skipping school.
Mhm.
That is, put that on any 15, 16-year-old on a trip to Chicago
Yeah.
from here. Much less to know the language, you're going before a court,
Yeah.
and that court could take you away right now. Would
Yeah.
you show up?
No, probably not.
Exactly. And certainly no other American 15-year-old kid, would do, because
Yeah.
we know about development, we know about the child brain, and we know all these things, and we know that that's an unfair position to put the kids in, and yet that's exactly what we are doing.
Mhm.
And anyway, and so the last part of that was for me when somebody from the audience said, well, actually, I am from Honduras, and we did bring our parents here because that's the kind of violence that's happening over there, and we don't want our parents over there, and we did it all completely legal, but it's so bad that we would bring our parents. Why wouldn't parents want to bring their kids? you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, it wasn't just more real, it was like slap in the face to me for looking at the statistics, when there are kids and families in this town that are very much violence refugees, you
Mhm.
know, or what do they call it? Forget what that word is, but they are escaping violence, they're asylum seekers
Yes.
in that sense. Whether we wanna have the legal framework or not, somebody's escaping violence and fear of death.
Mhm. Well, if Illinois turned into this battleground all of a sudden, you know, gang warfare everywhere, people were killing people, you know, if we were like covering the window because somebody liable to throw a grenade through the window while we're doing the show and all this stuff. And Indiana, meanwhile, their jobs, they had an oil boom or something and they're paying like $100 an hour and stuff, and they passed a, you know.
Have a chance we'll hear it, right?
Would we
course.
stay here and go, oh, well, there's a law, sorry, man, there's a law over there, we
Yeah.
can't go there, so even though it's a paradise right across the border there compared to what we're going through, there's a law.
You can't go, right?
Yeah, we can't go. So-
And we're gonna obey that law.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw that a little bit, I don't know if you remember, back in March of last year, the Russians were here visiting us, and then through all kinds of things, I ended up going. And so Valentina, the Uzbek who lived in Moscow, took me to the immigrants' place where they could register as refugees.
Right.
And so when we went there, I mean, this was March of last year, I believe, and the invasion of Putin to Crimea, the
Oh, yeah.
Russians being in Crimea, had already happened. But remember, there was a certain fear that this might happen in the Ukraine, but it wasn't quite there yet. It had
Yeah.
just started.
Yeah.
It was still ambiguous. Nobody was standing up to him and all that. We were in the refugee center interviewing people. I'm with an immigration lawyer, and the halls are full and full of people. When she announces that she's an immigration lawyer and she's gonna explain to them the process, we had people sitting, sitting because they were already on a chair, people standing that crowded in, and it became uncomfortably, people squeezing in, and there were people squatting to get the space between the standing and the sitting
Oh,
so they
wow.
could hear.
Yeah.
And we had several Ukrainian refugees there. Well, actually, at the time, they were just people from Ukraine that could go into Russia,
Right.
because there was no measurement. But they were telling us, so I'm a teacher over there, or I'm a factory worker over there. You think I want to stay there for the war?
Yeah.
You think that what happens if I'm a teacher in the Ukrainian government can't pay anymore? What would happen to all of our teachers here if all of a sudden the government started not paying them because they're afraid that they're not going to exist as a government anymore?
Right.
They flee.
Sure.
They take off. They went to the nearest possible place, and the logic of this one lady was, if I go to Russia, at least I know how to speak Russian, and if I go early, I might find the job. If I wait until there's actual, more battle, they might push us out to another country,
Mhm.
somewhere else. Am I gonna be like the Syrians? And she says, we had a job, and we don't have a job, or they're not gonna pay us. I'm not gonna hang around here and wait to see what happens to my kids and to my job.
Right.
You take off.
People essentially take care of themselves, and they do what's best for themselves and their families when they can, when
Yeah.
they're able to do so. And that's not a crime. It becomes a crime when you make a law against it.
Yeah.
If I made a law against you working more than 8 hours a day, and I paid you minimum wage to work 8 hours, and I said, there's a law, you cannot work more than 8 hours a day, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You're stuck. It's like, okay, I can't support my family, I've got like 6 kids, a wife, a house, I can't do that and work a minimum wage job 8 hours a day. There's no way I can do this. You would break the law because you had to. People
do that all the time.
They do that
All the time. You do what has to be done. You worry about how the system interprets it when you have to face it, if you have to face it at all. Because I was thinking of the Thomasboro argument a few months back about the speed limit said 15 or something like that, or 20 all over town.
Yeah.
And most people said, well, that was when there were kids all over or whatever else. Now we have to get to work and and the town has grown so much more. We just can't walk at the level that it was. The necessity is different, and if you want to live in an old way in which the law applied, that's fine, but we don't live then anymore.
Yeah. So I know I was derailing what we were talking about, but I just always feel compelled to bring that point up because it's so easy for people to go, yeah, but you're an apologist for this, or you're forgetting about this important aspect. No, I'm not forgetting any of that. I don't think any of us are forgetting it. Any of us who work with people or have been in that situation are not forgetting why people are here. But people on the other side, this gray area where there are sides on this issue, of people who are just looking at the issue from the outside and don't quite understand it completely, they do forget why people are here. And so they start thinking, well, they start listening to people who say, oh, they're coming here for these benefits and they're free this and free that. And you know that Obama's executive action, I forget who was saying this the other day, it was like, it gives them free health care and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, no, it doesn't do any of that. It doesn't
It's displaying
do anything
ignorance.
like
That's
that.
the sad part. So Tom, here we are.
Yes.
I start late, I come in late,
Yeah.
but this is in a way an inaugural program.
That's right.
And as I was, in the back and forth over the weekend as we started sending and defining our essentially agreement, it started really just cuajándose. It started like gelling, like Jello does. You add the right ingredients and then
Yeah.
it finally sets. That's what it did. It
Right.
started setting. We need a name for the program, and I sent you the notes. We need a name, we need a format, we need regularity, we need ways to do this. And I started liking it.
Oh, good.
I know we discussed
Yeah.
it, but now it started feeling real. We picked a name. So today we are switching this hour from Radio Triple R to
CU Immigration?
just simply CU Immigration. We decided not to call it a show.
Yeah.
We were talking about putting the word show on it, but it goes over the radio, 104.5 and UPTV.
Right.
Fridays, I don't know if they're keeping the slot for us as what we did in so that show also changes. That show used to be called CU Immigration Forum TV, which was quite a mouthful anyway. And now that show ceases to exist as that, and now it's just CU Immigration.
CU Immigration?
Immigration to CU and everything that has to do,
Mhm.
that affects immigrants and how we integrate or process that. So we're now CU Immigration.
Mhm.
It's a show for whom? Target audience.
Before I say that, I have to tell you that you're listening to WRFU-LP Urbana, 104.5 FM.
And you're also watching UPTV, Channel 6, transmitted from studio in Urbana. Well, actually, both studios are in Urbana right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I
Okay.
missed the top of the hour, so I had to say that.
Yeah, and so we'll have to integrate it, and you'll do the magic
Yeah.
of the editing. That's part of the agreement.
Yeah. So target audience, well, that's a good question. I've always sort of conducted this show as if I'm speaking to somebody that knows a bit about it, but doesn't dig down into the weeds the way I do, doesn't read every single thing. Just somebody who's kind of like generally sympathetic, but maybe not, hasn't the time to sit there and really follow up all the different issues and really think things through all the way to the end.
Yeah.
That's been my target audience. Who have you been talking to?
I defined it in writing at the beginning because I had two that I couldn't reconcile. One was the Spanish-speaking audience of the area, so that I could inform them about what's going on. But then I realized that it was hard for them to pick up UPTV. They just, because one, they listen to Univision and they usually get it with Dish, not with cable. And this was a cable channel, and I said, fat chance they'll catch me. Although once in a while somebody would tell me that they did. But like you, then I said, okay, so if I got an English-speaking audience, who would I wish to listen to me? And I realized that besides the ones that were a little bit sympathetic, I wanted a place to refer public officials to, agencies to,
Okay.
and those people that work in those agencies to become informed about who they were serving, which sometimes is not because they want to, it's just because it's their part of their assignment.
Right.
And then to bring in those people that didn't quite understand. They weren't necessarily sympathetic. And in that case then, I would wish that this is also a middle ground for those that are, if you were defined by party, by those within the Republican Party who have something to say but don't really have a way to express their thinking. And for those public officials that have an obligation, whether it's health department, schools, or whoever else, who are going to be serving immigrant populations, and they don't really have a choice. They need to make informed approaches and informed service, but either the climate isn't there or just their information isn't there for them to defend why they're doing what they're doing. It's not just because the government told me so, it's because I am here to serve all people that live within the county.
Yeah.
If it's health, because any health outbreak is detrimental to all of us.
Right.
Right? Or if it's school, because every child must be educated, because every child has the right to be educated, and the law says that they must go to school. Or anything like that, there's people that get caught in the middle of it without decision as to being in the middle, and they need information, but also defense.
Yeah.
So anyway, so for me, I would like to somehow in the dialogue that we carry forth, I think it should be open. We'll bring guests, and if you don't if we didn't bring you a guest, then I'm your fallback guy.
Well, that's good. You can counterbalance me a little bit, because my rhetoric tends to be pretty extreme sometimes. I am really frustrated with politicians and what they do and what they say, and these extreme elements that are out there who are just demonizing people and just attacking. I feel attacked, and they're not even talking to me, but they're talking to my friends. They're talking to my family. They're talking to people I know, and it hurts me. It hurts me in a physical way. I read this stuff, and it's like, you just slapped me in the face with your words. You may not know it. You don't know me. You don't know me. But you're talking about me as if you did, or you're talking about people I know as if you knew them. You probably didn't hear, but earlier I was trying to think of, I was listening, sort of thinking out loud and listening to all the people that I know that who would not be a part of my life if some of these guys were successful in their efforts to just block immigration and get rid of everybody. And I was having a hard time thinking of very many people that I knew that wouldn't be affected in a serious way if they were successful at deporting, just deport everybody.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind what that would do. So I do take this very personally.
Oh, no, and it's the truth. That is, there are very many persons affected, and sometimes they're not quite aware, and hopefully that'll be our niche, right?
Yeah.
Informing people that are affected in some way. So we have probably a guest for next week. Let me come back to then format of the show and what do we do. So for radio, we're live.
Yes.
Are we going to share the phone number? Are we going to invite people to call?
I think we are. I told them this time, I told them that we were going to do some calling in, but I was trying to run everything and think of everything all at the same time, and I didn't want to mess with it right now because because here's a problem. There's the camera over there. To read, I'm looking this way. To talk comfortably, I'm looking that way. To talk to you, I have to kind of lean back and do this really strange thing in order to look at you
and still
be on the camera, and we're still going to be just sort of part of our heads.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we're going to make this look good for TV.
Why don't you just hire a team that will have 3 cameras on us and follow us and who's that, the long-haired guy who had a really obnoxious show, radio show, and then they put him on TV and...
Howard Stern?
Howard, yeah. Howard. When I started seeing him on TV, and I think, what? It was already outrageous him on the radio, but now they're putting stuff on TV, and I guess they had several cameras and they had lots of money, so they did the whole thing, but Anyway, we should watch to see what the other people have been doing from this same
Yeah.
studio to get themselves on TV and figure that one out.
Yeah.
Jake from UPTV, the director or program manager, I don't know what your title is, Jake, he's the boss over there. We'll have to figure out when to put us on. Target audience, subject area, is there anything we don't cover? Or are we limiting ourselves in immigration? CU? No, because we're also going national?
Yeah, I was trying to define earlier who I thought we were talking about. This show here has been pretty much geared towards the Hispanic audience and mostly local
Yeah.
stuff with news about what's national in the sense of how does this affect us here. I don't know if we can broaden that much. We can try. I'd be happy to talk about anything that has to do with immigration. There's just
Yeah.
limits to what I know about personally.
Yeah, I like it too, even though I come from the border, so sometimes I get my border report.
Yeah.
Kind of like I remember in The Lion King when one of the animals comes and news from the underground, he says, because he's a gopher. In my case, I have relatives that have to face the border every day.
Oh, yeah.
And those kinds of situations sometimes come to me as family tales do, you know, probably with a little bit of salt we should take them, but it is what people have to do when they live on the border. So I think we start out with CU immigration and then we pepper it with other stuff that comes on.
Yeah.
Geographics, I was thinking, so now the RFU signal covers all of Urbana-Champaign, and a little bit
Right.
more, except over there by the airport. So we should name certain communities, give out shout outs for certain, you know, whenever they call, you know, where are you calling from, you know,
Ah.
Northwood or whatever. And then the other thing that I thought is, well, through TV, through cable, we're actually dealing, anybody that has cable where Comcast serves in these, and I don't know if they have they must have a geographic limit, but I think we should recognize if the Lono's on, you know, if they're receiving us or, you know, does Comcast cable go to Rantoul? I don't know. But RFU kind of does it. You can get it all the way up to Thomasboro sometimes.
In your car, maybe.
In your car, yeah. Well,
Probably not in your house.
not even my Walkman either,
Yeah.
when I go running.
Oh, well.
So, hey, thank you, partner.
Thank you.
We've just started a new era.
Gracias.
Igualmente.
Well, it's almost 9 o'clock, and you've been listening to what formerly was Radio Triple R, now.
And CU Immigration Forum TV.
Yeah.
And now
Just CU Immigration Forum.
CU Immigration. CU Immigration.
Yeah, CU Immigration is
Yeah.
the new name of the show. And we will be coming to you every Monday from generally probably 7 to 8, although we might go longer like we did tonight, go 7 to 9. It just depends on the night.
Yeah.
I think on an average night it'll be 7 to 8 because it's kind of
So
like
7 to 8 in WRFU live,
right.
and then probably, well, and then other nights on TV, as soon as we have that schedule, we will publish it for you. So you'll get multiple chances of hearing.
That's right. You'll be so sick of us. You won't know what to do.
Not true, not true, not true, not true.
Uh,
Subliminal, I'm just subliminal.
Right. So, but anyway, we thank you for tuning in and staying with us.
Did you pick